why is this unplugged now?
Because it wasn't like it moved to work.
Good evening. We'll just go ahead and call the meeting to order. Workshop to order, sorry.
Mayor Jordan.
Here.
Vice Mayor John Sardelli.
Here.
Commissioner Dan Samaria. Commissioner Tudor. Commissioner Rice.
Here. Please all stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Welcome to all of those participating in tonight's workshop, both here at the Law County and from home. The motion was made and unanimously passed during January 7th commission meeting to schedule a grant foundation workshop for the commission and the residents. We all agreed to have Commissioner Wise work with staff and create and run the work tonight's workshop. It is my understanding that the workshop is designed to optimize participation. I appreciate Commissioner Wise's commitment to this process and having your staff join us this evening. I ask that participants please follow the structure of the workshop so that we can optimize our time here this evening and make the process as inclusive and productive as possible. No other matters will be addressed at this evening's workshop. Commissioner Wise.
Thank you. So just a quick little bit of housekeeping before we get started.
All the way around.
Caesar, can you help us out? We're good? Resolve it? Sorry guys, we're having a little bit of feedback. So just a little housekeeping. In order to make this workshop accessible to the widest possible audience, we are broadcasting the presentation via GoToMeeting. It is also being streamed via Zoom. If you happen to be with us via Zoom this evening, you will not be able to participate in the live polling that is part of the presentation tonight. You will need to download forms from the village website, fill in those questionnaires by hand, and then bring them into the village after this session. So as for the GoToMeeting, this comes at no expense to the village. The account we are using is my company's account, which I am donating for this purpose. It is not the village's intention to use GoToMeeting as an ongoing platform for community communications. Such decisions must be made by the full commission. Within this presentation tonight, you will have the opportunity to share your opinions via a platform called Poll Everywhere. The cost of this resource to the village was $84. It is not the village's intention to use Poll Everywhere as an ongoing platform for community polling. Such decisions must be made by the full commission. The content in this presentation is the combined effort of the Biscayne Park staff and administration, some earlier vision work that was done, myself and my team, who audited similarly situated municipalities and governmental organizations as resources. These efforts come at no cost to the village, other than, of course, people's time, which they generously contribute. If any of the options offered in any of the polls we share tonight are missing content that you deem important, we welcome those inputs and ask you to include them in your worksheets. We can take those up tonight or anytime in the next 30 days. This is because the polls in the presentation will be open for 30 days from tonight, so we may capture as many resident opinions as possible. Please keep in mind, each resident may submit only one response, and the polling software is set to ensure that. Tonight, you may have been asked to sit on one side of the room or the other. If you are contributing in writing, we want that to count as one vote. If you are contributing via your mobile device, we want that to count as one vote. If you are contributing via your mobile device, you will have a workbook, but it's got a red stripe mark across the back. That's intentional, so we don't double count your votes. But we want you to be able to have scratch paper because there are a lot of choices, and to be able to sort of make them analog, give yourself some notes and scribble before actually entering the polling platform will make interacting with the device that much easier. And with that, let's get started. Caesar's gotcha. We could acknowledge all the effort that Caesar's put into this. He's putting out technology fires for 48 hours for us, and so we're super, super grateful. My associate, Mauro Martinez-Solis, is here while sharing her time tonight, and if you have any questions or need any assistance, don't hesitate to microphone. I feel like I'm supposed to sing. Okay. All right.
Weird. Hi, everybody. Take me back to the stand-up comedy.
Where you guys from?
This is one of the many wonderful tech problems we had in the tech room, which happens twice over the course of 10 hours. For those of you on the phone, we appreciate your patience as Caesar tries to, can we just drag it off the screen? Oh, hallelujah. And remember, it has to be the full desktop in order for the polling software to work, not just the PowerPoint presentation. Good. Okay. And Caesar, I haven't actually practiced with this. Do I use the center or the right click?
Right.
Okay, thanks. All right, great. So it's not working. Oh. Thanks. Try to be smarter than the technology. Okay, so what we're going to do tonight, what we're going to cover, ideally within a quick 2 hours, so we have plenty of time for public comment and conversation afterwards. We're going to have a little bit of an introduction to what we're doing. We're going to talk about core values. We're going to do an exercise around that where you guys can all share your inputs. We're going to talk about mission and vision, do some exercises there, and then just discuss the next steps. It should be as brisk as possible. If at any moment you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate. Not really clicking. Oh, if Mallory uses the mouse, can I? She's got a mouse in her hand. Is that good? All right, if you would advance the slides, because if you're clicking to answer people in chat, okay. Use the arrow buttons. There we go. We don't need to look at an introduction slide. Let's keep going. Thank you. All right, so what are our objectives tonight? To introduce you to the what and why of Brand Foundation. Why are we even bothering, right? And then to gather in your inputs to inform the Village's Brand Foundation going forward. We don't have any of these fundamental brand assets, and they would be really great to guide this village forward in a strategic direction. Sure, a brand asset are the elements of a brand foundation. Mission. So if we could move to the next slide. We can cover how to participate this evening, and I will be explaining all of that stuff to you as part of this presentation. I don't want to go out of order, so trust me, we'll get to that. I don't presume any pre-existing knowledge here, so if I cover anything that's already familiar to you, I beg your patience, but if you don't know anything about it, it will be explained in detail. This is definitely a bit of a branding 101. But how to participate tonight so that we get through this in a timely fashion, and so those who have given their time to participate via online, whether it's GoTo or Zoom, so we don't waste their time with a lot of conversation in the room. We're going to move through it, and we can talk about things afterward if there are any follow-up questions. If you have a question in the room, like you just did, sir, raise your hand. Mallory will be happy to come over and assist you. She is also a branding consultant and an expert in the matter. If you have a question online, you will see within the GoToMeeting platform, there is a chat function. Please feel free to enter any question you have. Mallory will respond to that. If you're in the room, record all your answers on your worksheets. If you are on the worksheet side of the room, if you're at home and you want to record online, please do that, or bring your workbook into the village. If you're on the online side of the room, you can use the platform. When we get to it, I'll explain it. You don't need to understand it right this moment. Like I said, if you can't join us tonight, we have until the 23rd to gather as much data as possible from every resident. So let's move on. So some great work was done. Historically, there was some vision work done by a group of residents, and this was a jumping off point for us, some great starts here. We wanted to give this some traction, and so that's what we're doing tonight. All right, so thank you. So what is Brand Foundation and why do we need it? A brand foundation is a set of written strategic tools that help us to understand who we are as a village, what we do, why we do it, where we're headed, right? This is a product of objective criteria against which you can measure all of our actions. So once we have this defined, we have something where we can choose what actions to take, what programs to initiate, what to spend our budget on. It gives us a lens through which to see all of the choices that we make as a village. It helps us stand out from other municipalities. What's different and better about the village of Biscayne Park? And I think a lot of us have strong feelings about that. It ensures we're consistent in our words and behavior, right? It's like a touchstone, a hallmark of who we are and how we should behave. And it builds trust and creates loyalty because we behave with consistency and people can understand who we are. Now, you could advance. Thanks. So tonight, what brand foundation elements will we be working on? Our values, which helps define who we are, our mission, what we do and why, and our vision, where we're headed. All right. So let's talk about our values. So what are values? I think we all have sort of a broad understanding of what that is. In this context, our values are our core beliefs and philosophies. They define what we stand for. They guide everything that we do. They clarify our shared ideals, and they help us to attract others who share our beliefs, right? It's just like your friends. If you have friends who have completely divergent values, you probably don't spend a lot of time together. You might have an abiding love for them, but they may not be the person that you call to hang out with on Saturday night. You generally, birds of a feather flock together. Let's define who we are so that we attract people who are going to love living in this village, so we attract people who are going to love working here. That's why we define our values. What happens if we don't advance the slide? What happens? Okay, what happens if we don't have values? Organizations that don't have values, and that's not just municipalities like our own, but huge corporations. When you don't have a set of core values, you lack focus and direction. You have no objective criteria for decision making, so your decisions are all over the map. It's very difficult to advance yourself into the future with any kind of linear approach. You work inefficiently and at opposing purposes. Meetings break down, people argue, there's nothing to refer to say, this is who we are, and these are the kinds of choices that we make, and we communicate poorly and without a shared understanding. And that's one of the many reasons why, when I joined this commission, I offered to do this workshop, because that was something that I broadly heard in the course of my campaign, was that there was a lack of strategic mission, vision, and values for the village. So let's look at some other municipalities, right? This isn't new what we're doing. A lot of our neighbors have already done something like this. And so we're sharing some examples with you so you can see what we're working towards, what your inputs tonight and in the next 30 days are going to be brought together to craft for the village to commemorate our values. So Coral Gables is cute. They did a little acronym: governance with integrity, aesthetics, balanced, learning, exceptional service, sustainability, with a little bit of an explanation after each one. You could say governance with integrity and stop there, but they took it an extra step to show what that means through the lens of Coral Gables, who they are as a municipality. So when they say governance with integrity, they mean making ethical and wise choices with guided thought and transparency. They packed a lot in there, right? They layered in more meaning. There are other values within there. There's integrity, ethics, wisdom, thought, and transparency. So tonight, when you see the list of values that we share with you to choose from, you're going to see like 35 choices. And you're going to say, whoa, why are you giving me so many choices? Why are we just picking 5 or 6? Because we want to take a wide swath of opinions from everybody here. And when we get our top 10, we can layer them together like this in a piece of prose that will commemorate who we are and guide us in the way that Coral Gables has done. Okay, our next example is Miami-Dade Parks and Rec. So they had a slightly different approach. Instead of using an acronym, they have outstanding customer service, enthusiastic attitude and teamwork, accountability and integrity, and creativity and innovation. They did a pairing. They took a lot of language and they paired things together, and then you see they have a little sentence or two of prose underneath that, unpacking what they mean by outstanding customer service. Because if you just heard the phrase outstanding customer service, you might think, you know, that's what I get from Amazon or something like that. No, it's through the lens of Miami-Dade Parks and Rec. Miami-Dade Parks Recreation and Open Spaces provides outstanding customer service exemplified by a professional, effective, efficient, considerate, and friendly attitude toward our community, visitors, and coworkers. Again, packing a lot of juice into one value statement. And ideally, we should be able to do the same with your inputs. Next. We have the city of Charlotte. This is here, you know, as I mentioned at the front, we audited a lot of municipalities. We cast a really wide net for inspiration to share with you guys. This is here because Charlotte calls their values guiding principles. Just to show you that there is other nomenclature, it doesn't have to be called values. We can call it guiding principles if we like. And they did them in a very active voice. We will attract and retain a skilled and diverse workforce. We value teamwork. We will provide all customers with courteous, responsive, accessible. We will take initiative. They just chose to frame it in a different way. So there are a lot of approaches to this. We're going to take all of your inputs and try to find the one that resonates most across the widest audience of residents. Next. Okay, so now that we've seen some examples, it's time for us to do a little bit of work to identify our values. So if you'll move to the next slide, you're going to see we've given you 35 values to choose from. And these are extracted from all of the different municipalities that we saw, anything that we thought would be appropriate. So if you could take a moment and just look at your workbook. Yes, we do have pens. Does anybody need a pen?
The gentleman in the back, I don't think has a workbook.
Oh, okay.
Sir in the back, yeah, you need a workbook, sir? This gentleman.
No worries. So, especially if you're going to participate via the app, you probably want to mark up your sheet first because, as you can imagine, scrolling through an app on your phone with 35 choices, not a lot of fun. So if you are participating online at home and you have your computer, this might be a little easier, but you might want to take some handwritten notes before we activate the poll. But we're going to give everybody plenty of time. You've got about 15 minutes. Sure, just one moment, Commissioner Samaria. You've got about 15 minutes to consider this, but the reason you have the workbook is so you can look at that now. If you would advance to the next slide, Nara. So if you want to participate on your mobile device, if you are at home using another browser window on your computer or your tablet or your phone, you need only enter the address pollev.com, and you will see it at the top of the screen. It's right there. pollev.com/BP poll. Simple as that. It'll open a browser window, and a digital version of this poll will populate on your mobile device. I'm going to open mine because I am a resident and I should get to participate. Can I answer a question for you? Can Mallory answer a question for you? So we want you to look at this and choose the top 10 values that you think are most important out of this set of 35. Once you have chosen 10, please rank them in order of importance. What we are asking you is, what values would you like to see this village embody? This isn't your personal values, right? This isn't about you or what you want. It's what you want from your village as a municipality, what you want from your staff, from your elected officials, from your environment, from your neighbors. This is Biscayne Park writ large, all right? So you should have it active in your phone at this time if you are participating online. We have values like proactivity. What would that mean to the village of Biscayne Park? That means we don't sit back and wait for things to happen and solve problems reactively. We get ahead of it. What does ethics mean? Clearly, ethical behavior in all things. What does security mean? Right? That there should be a sense of security and safety that the village gives to its residents. Knowledge. We should be getting information. We should be learning. We should be informed. Accountability. We should be responsible, right? Answerable for our actions. Recognition. What would the value of recognition mean to this village? It means that we recognize great behavior when it happens, right? We make people feel noticed and included. What does flexibility mean? Well, we operate by a set of rules. Should those rules be flexible and open for consideration of special circumstances? Intelligence, right? Are you looking for this village to have a certain level of intellect and acumen? Performance. Do you want to see things happen? Do you want a lot to get done? And that's a value you choose. Quality, obviously, is quite clear. We want things done to a high standard. Professionalism, again, buttoned up, professional. Advocacy. Do you believe that's a value the village should embody? One of the things that your commission and the administration does is they advocate legislation, try to get us money, etc., to help us out. Do you see us as advocates? Courtesy. Obviously, we should treat people kindly and respectfully in all transactions. Fairness, right? Should we be balanced and fair? Teamwork. Should we be working together? You could be hearing a lot of these things and going, yeah, all of those things. That's why we've asked you to pick 10 and then rank them in order of importance. Health. Should the village be looking out for the health of everyone who lives here? Integrity, I think is self-explanatory. Resourcefulness. Are you looking for your village to be able to pull itself up by its bootstraps and solve problems on its own? Do you want a sense of community? Should that be a value that we hold high, that sense of connectedness? Leadership. Should we be cutting a path ahead of perhaps other municipalities? Should people across the state be talking about us as breaking waves? Dependability. Obviously, you would want your village to be a reliable environment. You might choose that one. Approachable. Should we be warm and friendly, easy to talk to, accessible, caring? Should we be gentle and kind and compassionate? Generosity. Yes.
What's confusing to me is that all of these things seem to me to be like common sense principles of the way one generally lives one's life. So how are you supposed to prioritize things that, I don't understand how that's going to help sort of distinguish acting principles, because these are, most of them, a good 90% of them are something
That we ought to do.
Yeah.
Yes, that we ought to do. We need to narrow the field so that we can be relevant to as many possible people in the village. So you may prioritize a certain 10, someone else may prioritize another 10. Just because you don't choose it doesn't mean it isn't going to happen. As you saw from Paul Gable's values, they had govern with integrity, but within integrity, they had ethics, they had accountability, they had a lot of other values packed in there. So while you may choose only 10, we are going to get data from ideally at least 100 people. We've had an indication that that's how many want to participate either in person or remotely. And we're going to crunch all those together into buckets. So we're not going to come back and go, here are the 10 things out of those 35 things that we should be. We're going to say, here they are, crystallized together, a product of what you, the residents, have said that you want. So you will see your 10 in there, and her 10, and his 10, and his 10. This is a collective. We have them all there because we couldn't really narrow it down to 10. I think we can agree many of these things should be there. But some people might think flexibility is not a great idea, and they might leave that out or put it at the bottom of the list. And we need to know that, because that's going to guide the decisions we make. It's going to guide things like variances, right? It's going to guide for our administration. It's going to guide, if there are infractions in the staff, how hard-fisted will our manager be with his staff? And I think that's an important point to make, and excuse me for glossing over it, but the audiences, right? And when I say audiences, I say, who does this matter to? Who are we doing all of this for? There are two really priority audiences for our values, our mission, and our vision. The first, obviously, is our residents. There's nobody more important to the village of Biscayne Park than the people who have chosen to live here. But our second audience, our second priority audience, and to a certain extent, almost as important, are our administration and staff. Because you cannot deliver a quality experience without quality people to deliver it. And so if you don't create an environment that makes those people who work here feel valued, useful, honored, etc., then it's going to be very difficult to attract and retain talent. And if we can't attract and retain talent, we can't deliver services to you. So when you think about should we be flexible, you want to think, okay, we're flexible with residents, flexible with staff. If we're going to be, if we want teamwork, right? Is that teamwork in service of the residents, teamwork in service of the staff? It's a secondary lens to look through it through, but to a very big extent, it's equally important. An organization is only as good as the people who serve its priority audiences. So as you can see, the data is coming up. I'm going to put the mic down for a minute because I actually have not answered this poll myself.
You didn't mention quality, the residents and staff. You didn't mention the police would be staff.
Yeah, they would follow our
And they're not sworn, but it's okay.
Question?
Yes.
I backed out of my poll and
You cleared your results?
yeah, I can't seem to get back in.
Oh, you've got to re-enter the URL, pollev.com/, and it should bring you back in. Scroll to the bottom.
And you just say this into the mic, because they'll probably understand.
Question.
For those of you who are participating via your mobile device, you will see that when you're done selecting your values, you scroll to the bottom and you tap the submit response. If you have second thoughts or you see something that you missed, you can hit clear response and you can go back in and enter it again. But at all times, you need to be at the URL address pollev.com/bppoll.
That's never a question. I finished and hit submit, and it ranks all the others that I did not select. It continues right over that.
What's within the interface is not a ranking. The ranking is up here. Obviously, it's a little bit small.
Sorry, I have to be mindful to keep the mic on so that this is all recorded. Sorry, Caesar. Yeah, so the ranking in your phone is not the final ranking, it's the ranking on the screen. And for those of you who are interested in the outcome of these polls, we will make all of this data available after the 30-day polling window has closed.
I'm sorry, I didn't. So I see my 10 ranked there, but then all the other 25 or however many there are there, and they show a ranking as well that I didn't give them.
If they're anywhere below the top 10, they didn't register up there. They were pushed down.
Maura is there to answer questions. Oh, I'm sorry.
You mentioned that you were going to measure performance based on the growth. How do you measure performance?
We're here to define those terms tonight. We're here to take your opinion on what those terms should be, and you'll see at the close of this, we'll explain what our next steps are. We're going to take all of this data and define the terms based on your inputs, and that will give us our go-forward instructions.
Now, I'm just going to answer the poll.
Everybody would share the exact same opinion that. It'll show here when this one's recorded. Yeah.
Oh, so it's just a motion for sign that.
Yeah. That's why I need to get it.
Just so you know, this is the only question that has 35 answers. I know it's a pain, and I know it's not necessarily the funnest thing to interact with, but the next ones have 15 or less responses. We thank you for your patience and for giving your opinions to this important order.
Around 10 o'clock.
The top line there.
It says ethics.
So. That is a total of people that have ethics within their top 10.
Yes.
So ethics could have been number 10 on everybody's. Theoretically.
It's coming in close enough to first that it's beating out others. I'd be more than happy to share a link to how the polling software works. So I don't want to go into a long lecture about it, but I didn't build this software. It was created by polling experts. Actually, for those of you who are interested, I learned about this because this software was used by the Florida League of Cities at the newly elected officials training that I attended. And I found it to be interesting and impactful. And so I brought it home and I included it here. And all of this data will be available to you so that you can see how it actually works out. So while you see that it's first right now, if you go into the back end, you'll see how many people voted for it and in what position. This is just a summary of the data. It's not parsed in a million different ways, but if you're interested in seeing how it parses out, it's not difficult for us to print a report. We will print that data report when the polling period closes, because before then it will be premature.
So it's likely, I'm sorry, so it's likely it's weighted, in other words, if I put ethics as number 10, and probably assign 10 points, I'm sorry, if I assigned ethics as number 1 and assigned at my 10, they gave it 10 points to give it the top ranking of mine, added up all the numbers.
However that weighting works, I don't want to presume that that's how it goes, but yeah, yeah. And the software does allow you to parse the data in different ways. So if you are a data and stats geek and you want to see that, I'm sure we can print out the report in many different ways. But at the end of the day, this is a summary that allows people to see like, hey, I hit submit and my answers were actually included. Security is now number 1. This is an interesting horse race, my friends. Security is now beating. We have security, ethics, integrity, preparedness, transparency, accountability, fairness, community, flexibility, resourcefulness. My eyes aren't good enough either. I'm sorry, but we're stopping at 10 for now, and 10 is resourcefulness. Intelligence is 11. So we're going to keep this open for about 2 more minutes, and then we'll move on. If there's anybody on the phone who feels like they haven't been able to finish responding, as I said, poll remains open for 30 days. Everybody gets to submit their responses once. You can clear them and submit them again as many times as you want. If you go home and have an 11th hour eureka and you want to change things, poll will be available for you to do that. So let's move on from our values and talk about mission and vision. So what is the difference between a mission and a vision? We get this question a lot. We often see them conflated. A mission is a short summary of our core purpose, right? What we're trying to get done, what our goals are. It usually includes a brief description of what we're trying to get done, our key objectives. It's important because it defines what an organization does every day to keep moving forward in the intended direction. A vision is a short description of our ideal future, where we are heading if we commit to our mission every single day. And it should be a guide to all of us and define our intended direction in a more aspirational way. A mission is tactical. What do we do every day to get where we need to be? A vision is aspirational on the horizon. It gives us something to aspire to. So when we craft a vision, it shouldn't be a description of where we are right now. It should be an ideal picture of the future, full of superlatives that get us up out of our seats every morning to commit to a vision, to our mission in a committed and directed way. Do you have a question? Oh, for the vision?
Yeah.
We don't have to be. If you don't like that one, then don't pick it. Because a vision is meant to be superlative. As I just said, yes, a vision is aspirational. It's where you want to be 5, 10, 15 years from now. If it were to describe our current state, we would not move forward. And so if you don't like that one, don't pick it. That's why it's multiple choice. Some people might feel that way, and we're offering you a lot of options. But we're not at that exercise right now. We're going to do mission first. So let's look at the next slide now. Just to give you some examples of stuff in market, so you can see how this is working for some of the world's most successful companies. Yeah, there's an argument around whether or not Tesla is as successful as they were hoping to be, but they are certainly inspirational, and that's why they're included here. The vision for Tesla, and there's a reason that it's first. That's quite all right, sir. It's not for everybody. We hoped that it would be for everybody, but if it's not for you, that's fine. So the vision for Tesla is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. That's a pretty lofty goal. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. How are they getting it done every day? By creating the most compelling car company of the 21st century, by driving the world's transition to electric vehicles. That's smaller, that's achievable, that's what they're actually doing, but they have a much bigger vision of where the world should be and how they can play a role in that. Our next example is Nike, another brand we're all pretty familiar with. You may have heard, if you have a body, you're an athlete. That is part of their vision, to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. It's pretty superlative, nobody's left out, and that's because one of their core beliefs is that if you have a body, you're an athlete. How are they getting it done? This is going to sound pretty picky here. Create groundbreaking sports innovations, make our products sustainably, build a creative and diverse global team, and make a positive impact in communities where we live and work. They believe if they do that every day, they will bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. So what would our vision be? Our mission. Let's look at some other municipalities. You can see here, it's a little bit small for those of you in the room, so I will read it to you, that Cutler Bay is really drinking the mission and vision Kool-Aid. They say, the mission is a clear and concise statement of what the town government must accomplish in order to realize our strategic vision. The town vision is a brief description of what we want our community to be like in the next 5 years, 2014 to 2019. What do they say? Their mission, the town council will work to make Cutler Bay an excellent place to live, work, and play. Cutler Bay's government will be creative, responsive, and respectful. Those sound like values, don't they? We're going to pull the values into the mission. Creative, responsive, and respectful, and provide innovative and cost-effective services to the community. What's their vision? Cutler Bay will be recognized as one of the most desirable communities. Superlative in South Florida to live, work, and play. Its schools, homes, parks, and cultural facilities offer an enriching environment for children, adults, and senior citizens alike, and this local economy encourages outstanding companies to want to do business here. That's where they want to be. That's how they're going to get there every day. Can we see the next one, Maura? This is Miami-Dade Parks and Rec. They've done a really good job across their brand foundation. Their vision, connecting people in parks for life. We're sharing this one just so you can see there's no one way to write a vision. It can be really pithy and aspirational. And that's actually kind of beautiful. It has a nice double meaning. What they're going to do is they're going to create outstanding recreational, natural, and cultural experiences to enrich you and enhance the quality of life for our community, for this and future generations. So when they say connecting people in parks for life, they mean like for your lifetime, but also to add life. There's a nice double meaning within it. Somebody probably hired somebody to write that. I don't see that coming up by committee. But those are just some examples to share with you. Let's look at our own. So what makes a strong mission statement? What are the parts and pieces that we need to have something like this for ourselves? A statement should explain who we intend to serve. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a priority, our residents, also the people who support us by working here. States what we do and our overall intention, describes how we achieve those goals, explains why we do what we do, our reason for being, what's our purpose, and it communicates purpose and direction to all of our audiences, residents, administration staff, other municipalities, and other stakeholders. That's audiences getting wider and wider. And ultimately, it should support our vision by describing what we'll do to achieve it. So let's break it down. What is the anatomy of a mission statement so that we can take out the pieces that we need and create them together? This is Trader Joe's. You guys shop there. You might have seen this on the wall. It's a pretty cool one. The mission of Trader Joe's is to give our customers the best food and beverage values that they can find anywhere and to provide them with the information required to make informed buying decisions. We provide these with a dedication to the highest quality of customer satisfaction, delivered with a sense of warmth, friendliness, fun, individual pride, and company spirit. As you'll see on the next slide, this is what's in there. Who do we serve? Our customers. What do we do? They provide the best food and beverage values they can find anywhere and provide them with information to make buying decisions. Why do they do it? Because they have a dedication to the highest quality of customer satisfaction. How do they do it? With a sense of warmth, friendliness, fun, individual pride, and company spirit. All those pieces are in there. We want to get those pieces from you so that we can create something similar. So the next thing we're going to do is figure out those elements of our mission. Who we serve, pretty clear. Don't think we need to spend time there. And as you'll see how we do it, that's going to be governed by our values. As you saw in the mission statements that I read, those values are coming through in the way they deliver the services. So we need to focus on what we do and why we do it. So our first exercise is going to be around what we do. So if you'll see in your workbook, we have a bunch of proposed what's that we could do. We can ensure public safety, maintain and develop our parks, facilities, and offerings, care for our natural flora and the wildlife that inhabit it, regulate development, prepare for emergencies or natural disasters, communicate with clarity and consistency, foster transparency of government, anticipate infrastructure needs of the village, diversify our revenue, enforce community code and building standards, create a simple and smooth process for residents who are altering their homes, provide responsible and transparent fiscal accountability, educate residents around community standards and regulations, offer engaging events and programming, promote diversity in our community staff and administration, maintain our historic style of architecture, welcome modern style of construction, and care for those in our community who can't care for themselves. As I mentioned at the beginning of the workshop, if there's any content here that you feel is missing, please feel free to submit it in writing. Everything will be weighed equally. This was the result of the collaborative work that I mentioned at the beginning of this workshop. So if you would, take a look at these, take your top 10, and put them in order of priority. For those of you who are participating digitally, you'll see the poll appear. It's the same tap, tap, tap stuff. If anyone in here is a digital engineer, poll everywhere is ready to have its lunch eaten, if you can just figure out a better interface.
Well, we don't really have any commercial development. Well, that might go under diversify revenue, that might be one. You know, if you feel that we need to regulate the existing development that we have now, the homeowners are coming in and building things that you love or you don't love, that would be something that we would choose.
Everybody can take this home and finish it by the 23rd. Why are we wasting time waiting? Everybody can do that.
If you want to leave, you can. There's more to just have to say.
Assume there was more to the presentation. That's where you know what we're still in that.
Well, no, we needed to explain the significance of each of these elements. As you saw, heard from the beginning, some people were like, what is a brand foundation? So we had to, I know that you were involved in the earlier mission or vision work. Oh, okay, I stand corrected. But as I said, there are going to be people in here to whom this is quite familiar and maybe not that informative. There are people in here who've never heard this before, and we had to give this at a level that would give the most information to the widest possible audience. But you don't have to be here tonight if you don't want to. You could certainly go home and finish that. Why not do? You can. I guess I don't understand the question, but yeah, it's a workshop, which means we work together on this. You're welcome to discuss things with your neighbor, but the reason we're waiting for others to contribute is because we're a community. We do things together, at least in theory. For those of you who have a hard time reading small print, prepare for emergencies and natural disasters, just hit number 1. Ensure public safety is number 2. Infrastructure needs number 3. And these should be your own opinions, right? It can be tempting when you see things populate to change your mind, but they should come from your personal experience and your personal needs and desires.
It's up to you. Well, if you choose that, if you want to put them both, you can. Absolutely. No, they wouldn't. They would put their ranking. They're not going to disappear from the screen. Yeah. But they may be at loggerheads because we don't all agree on things. That's why we're here, to get community consensus.
To get community consensus, we need to let everybody weigh.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
So since this is going to be recorded, folks can go at their own pace and then answer the 30 days. So they can go at their own pace reviewing it, go to the workshop and then answering it in 30 days.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Absolutely. And not everybody had a Tuesday night free, right? So, absolutely.
So just to most of us who are writing down here, even if we left or whatever, came in and wanted to do it later, and then happy with it, and the final result will be done. So by the end of the night, it's not necessarily very.
No, especially because we're going to keep the digital poll open for 30 days, and people would be able to hand in packets for 30 days. So, yeah. But it gives you a sense of what people in the room and those who are on the phone. We have at least a dozen people on the phone right now.
Paper data will be input into this poll to allow software to work on. I can do it later.
Yes. And if you're familiar with how all this stuff works, if you understand mission and vision, and you don't need any of the preamble or explanation, then you. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. So if you're going to do that later on your phone, then we need the workbook back because we want to make sure everybody contributes once. So the idea is for one vote per resident. I don't think anyone is going to pretend that this is a perfect process, right? We had tons of technical difficulties. We didn't even know if we were going to be able to get the software to work yesterday afternoon. Caesar and I were in here crying and holding each other. But we got it to work. And at the time, when we were afraid that this wasn't going to happen, we thought, okay, we'll just do it all on paper. We'll have to count all of the votes by hand. And we're faced with a choice. Do you do something imperfect or do you not do it at all? And I hope that we can all agree that it is better to try and do your best than to just abandon because it's going to be less than perfect. What's the expression? Perfection is the enemy of the good. Did I get that right? Anybody? Pithy? Something like that? Perfection is the enemy of the good? It can color the good. Yeah, so somebody said something about perfection and just not trying to be too perfect. I'm probably killing the quote. All right, so that's our mission. If people have had enough time to participate, because it will be open, we can keep moving. For now, ensure public safety is rocking the day, maintaining and developing our parking facilities. Second, prepare for emergencies and natural disasters. Third, enforce community code and building standards. Fourth, anticipate infrastructure needs of the village. And again, this is all very preliminary data. So if your favorite one isn't number one, don't cry. There's still time. Let's move on to the next part. All right, why do we do it, right? We said we were going to talk about two things, what we do. Now, why do we do it? What's our purpose? Why do we bother to prepare for disasters? Why do we regulate our buildings and code? Like, why do we enforce our code? Why do we diversify our revenue? These are the reasons why. To keep residents safe, to enhance quality of life, to provide a place to congregate and enjoy outdoor activity, to preserve the ecology of our city and state, to preserve and enhance the village's natural beauty, to keep our community accessible for middle-income buyers, to build our reputation as a great place to live, to raise our property values, to set and meet expectations, to budget and plan for infrastructure investment, to build our fiscal health and reserves, to foster confidence and trust, to ensure awareness of regulations and compliance, to foster a sense of community, to honor all people, regardless of orientation, heritage, or points of view, to preserve our rich history, to enable growth and evolution, and to show our caring and compassion. Which of those 10 do you think is most important? And in what order? Take your time, submit your answers, or do it at home. Whatever pleases you. We are trying to make this process as flexible and inclusive as possible. Once again, if there's anything on this list that you feel is missing, feel free to write it in. We can add it to the poll. Just because there's only one person who thinks that something should be added to this list will not preclude it from being added to the poll. It's very easy to add a choice on the back end of this data. This is our third poll. There's only one more after this, and then we're done. We have about 10 minutes to go, and then we can proceed to the remainder of the agenda. All right, we'll give this one more minute, and then we'll move on to the last exercise.
Everybody looks to you.
Thank you for your attention.
Okay, let's move on to the last exercise. Again, if you're still debating your answers, you have 30 days to input your opinions. All right. So finally, vision statement. We touched on this briefly earlier. It describes what the village would look like in a successful future state. Cast far into the future to create a vision that will really have us lean in and try to do things to move us forward. It should be inspirational and aspirational and create a mental image for all of us of what our village could be like if we act on our mission every day. So, here's our last exercise of the day, everyone. Now that we've had time to consider what we should be doing as a village and what those efforts are intended to achieve, let's look to the future. Imagine you're reading a newspaper article about our village 10 years from now. It begins, the village of Biscayne Park, founded in 1933, is best known for, let's finish that thought. And so on the next slide, you will see some ways that we might finish that thought, some superlatives. Again, not exhaustive. If there's something that's left out here, feel free to write it in by hand. But should we have the most beautiful green space of any municipality, a state-of-the-art park rec center and offerings, the lowest crime rate, the safest streets for pedestrians, most diverse and culturally rich, highest property values, friendliest neighbors, most dedicated staff and officials, exceptional code enforcement and compliance, rich in architectural history, healthiest financials with hardy reserves, most connected and caring community, future-ready infrastructure, welcoming to new development. Is it superlative? Of course. Is it going to read like this when we write it? No. but we want you guys to cast far. The further ahead into the future we look, the more we understand where you want the village to go, the likelier we are to do things every day to achieve that. Don't be afraid to dream big. Shoot for the moon. You might land amongst the stars. Thank you.
So if you shoot for the moon, you might land on the highest mountain.
That would be great.
Mountain is far, as far as much farther than the moon.
I remember when I bought my home here in 1997, I called the chief of police to find out about this municipality. I did not know anything about it. And he reported that they had the lowest crime rate in Miami-Dade. Might have even been the state of Florida at the time. There were 2 bicycle thefts that year. So while this may be a superlative, dreams can come true. All right, we'll give it 1 more minute. Again, if you need more time, 30 days, plenty of time. For those of you who can't read the small print, right now, lowest crime rate, number 1, safest street for pedestrians, number 2, most beautiful green space of any municipality, 3, friendliest neighbors, 4, healthiest financials and hardy reserves, 5, highest property value, 6, connected and caring community, 7, future-ready infrastructure, 8, state-of-the-art park rec center and offerings, 9, exceptional code enforcement and compliance, number 10. So early days on the data, of course, that's where we are right now. So we can move on to the next slide. What's next? What do we do with all of this stuff? We're going to enable others who couldn't participate by keeping the window for inputs open for 30 days. We're going to consolidate all these inputs to determine the most favored values, mission, and vision inputs. We're going to employ that data to inform the creation of values, mission, and vision statements. We're going to share that crafted material at the following commission meeting, following the 30-day window. So the 30-day window is going to close sometime in late April. It is very doubtful that we will be able to parse all of that data and turn around draft mission, vision, and values in a little over a week. So it will probably be the meeting after that. This is very deliberate work, and so we want to do it with patience and focus and not rush the product. We will share that at a commission meeting to gather feedback for revision. We will finalize and propose to adopt what we've crafted via resolution. And ideally, because you guys were generous enough to take your time this evening to give us your inputs, you will see your opinions reflected in this work. The mission, vision, and values of the Village of Biscayne Park is meant to embody what all of you want and need from your community, and that's what this workshop is all about. It is an earnest effort to try to give that back to you in the form of a new mission, vision, and values. And we thank you so much for your time. We have done this in under an hour and 15 minutes, and we were slated for 3 hours. So thank you for helping us move this apace. For those of you who are on the phone, thank you for joining us. Please tell your friends and neighbors about the availability of the option to continue to participate over the next 30 days. We will be very excited to share the outputs with you, the raw data, and the final crafted product in the coming months. Thank you so much for your patience and time.
Commissioner Moskowitz, just real quick, when will the meeting be posted approximately, so we know the folks can actually, want to participate over the time period, can actually view the video before the end of the week? Okay, thank you. Commissioner Watts. Anything else?
No, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Sure.
One answer per household or?
1 answer per resident.
Per resident.
Yeah, if people within a household may not necessarily agree, right? Yep. So one citizen, one vote.
How does a resident, like, that may not know about this, get one of these?
It's on the village site, you can download it, and print it at home. Yep.
I want to thank everybody for coming as well, and taking the time out of your busy schedule to do this. Don't seem a little high level, but it actually helps a lot in the future. Thank you all so much for coming. And I'd like to also thank Commissioner Wise for her putting something like this together. I know it's a lot of work. I also want to thank Laura for also coming to help out. So thank you all very, very much. Your motion is your turn.
Thanks. Oh, okay. Please go over here.
Okay, public comment. We need to move this back out. We will open it for public comments for those of you who would like to stay in that public comment. So those who would like to stay in public comment, we go ahead. Okay, we'll open the floor, when everybody's ready. Give us a minute here. Give us a minute.
The wise, all we did with
Real quick, would you be able to repeat the time for the public comment?
So did you figure out, yeah, what was the one, okay, so that should be, if you look at the guys now, it should be.
Okay, public comment? Okay, that's it. Thank you. Okay, open for public comments. Please don't forget to state your name and address.
Back on Kennedy, 11705 North East 11th Place. Hi, everybody. I scratched some stuff down, so forgive if it's a little rambly. First of all, thank you, Betsy, for putting this together. You clearly put a lot of work into it. And I'm sorry I didn't catch your name. Wednesday. Thank you very much. I understand you volunteered your time, and it's really nice of you to come here and do this for the village. Thank you. Since I moved here 3 years ago, I've been a very strong proponent of Biscayne Park, developing a clear vision and core values to guide the community to its full potential. So I hesitate being anything but completely positive and supportive, and I really am completely positive and supportive about the fact that this is taking place. As many of you know, I was involved in the group that proposed this a year and a half ago, whenever it was, and I'm really glad it's happening. Developing Biscayne Park as a brand is a good thing. It's a required thing, it's a smart thing, and it's long overdue. Core values keep all organizations on track. I get it, and I love it, so thank you for doing this. But why was everything created in the shade rather than in full light and transparency? That's the only problem I have with this. And it's for a couple of reasons. Because my understanding is government is different than business, and things here should be done completely in the most transparent way. And I would think that rather than having one commissioner and people that are employed working on this, maybe with someone at the village, I don't know, that all the commissioners should have been involved in the planning stages of this as well, because you guys presented something to us to consider here. And while I understand that we can, email in other ideas and thoughts and things, we were given a framework here. So rather than all of us getting together and painting a lovely painting, and coming up with it on our own, I feel like we were handed paint by numbers and told to color inside the lines. So it felt a little constraining to me when I would have preferred something, exercises that you guys could do, where you would pull all of that out of us as original thoughts and see where we end up, rather than handing us something and say, rank these. And for that reason, if I recall, and I don't want to put words in Jenny's mouth, but when we presented our vision thing back 2 Novembers ago, I think you're the one that said, I like it, but I don't think the village should do it itself. I think we should hire someone, a completely separate organization to do this for us. And I understand you have a company that does this kind of work, but someone completely outside the village. So my comment really is, I would have preferred that you gather residents and you help us come up with those things and then rank them. Not to say what the group I was involved in did was perfect. We didn't do it as meant. We didn't present it to be adopted. We just said, hey, here's a way it could be done. That's really cool. But that's what we did. We sat together as a group and we went through exercises and we developed the words, the thoughts. Then we ranked them and then we turned them into something. And it was all very original to us. It wasn't handed to us. So that's my only criticism, is not why you're doing it, but the how you did it and when it was done and how it was done. But I'll be in the, let me wrap it up. She can handle the meeting all by herself, Michael. Thank you for your input, though. So, yeah, I know, I'm wrapping it up.
We're not gonna have that.
Done.
Okay?
Well, then make it stop if you want to not have
Excuse
it.
me. Oh, colleagues, stop, Mr. Redmond, stop, Mr. Kennedy, stop, right?
I didn't
Finish your
start
thought.
anything, Tracy.
Finish your thought.
Yeah, I finished my thought.
Thank you.
I think that may have been Charlie Easton's problem when he left here, was that he felt a bit constrained by it as well. He acted the same way when we did our visioning thing. He didn't leave, say word. But he, I think he would have preferred to have been able to come up with some things, because there are some things that he really would have wanted to be very different, and that would be his right to do that.
Thank you, sir. Any further public comment?
Janie Anderson, 11th Place, 119th Street,
totally on board with what Mac had to say. I'm very excited about the concept that we're at least doing this. I'm disappointed in the process. I understand at the January 7th meeting, this was discussed in general, in the abstract, the specifics. Who wrote the questions for the survey? Who approved those? What were the costs involved? None of those specifics were ever publicly told. And it just felt like, rather than the exercise the way our group did it, where it's all our own original words, and we might have 3 or 4 concepts that work well together. So you group them, you had so much more inclusiveness than just being given short, pithy phrases in a few words. And the survey in particular had things on them that wasn't even conducive to visioning, such as annexation. Annexation, that train left the station 3 years ago when we were on it. Of the only area that you could realistically, financially make sense to annex. So it felt like there were preconceived desired results, and here were our choices from those results. The exercise of openness and having things in people's own words, it just is so much more meaningful, and that's the way you get more buy-in, you get people more comfortable. Whether I agree with Charlie Eastern or not, I get his point. You don't feel the same kind of buy-in as when you're out there in your words, culling everything together. A couple of questions were asked at April's meeting weren't ever answered. I hope we will going to get those answers. We both questions, what were the costs involved. I'd also like to know how many surveys were returned and what the total mailing was. But again, I'm all in on the concept. I'm just made about the process.
Thank you. For the public comments.
Dick Rogers, 655 Northeast 118th Street. I would like to disagree with my 2 predecessors. I'm probably one of the few people in this room who would have the time to do what the committee that did this did. I'm retired. I've got every day of the week to do this 8 hours a day. 2, the appointment of a committee of residents doesn't necessarily speak for all of the residents. It only speaks for the people on that committee. So then do we do a dissemination of their work and their definitions of terms to every resident of the village to make sure they agree? Athens tried it. It didn't work well for them. We do need to remember we are a representative democracy. These are our representatives. We voted for them. If we don't like them, next time we won't vote for them. But we can't have a select few residents determine what's going to happen to the rest of the residents. I didn't vote for you. I voted for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Further comments?
Dan Keys. I would have to agree with the first 2 speakers and disagree and counter that point that Mr. Rogers made in that, in fact, our elected officials didn't produce this, and elected official produced this. And honestly, I want to echo what the first 2 speakers said, in that it's a good process. It gave us. I would have rather it been a little bit more grassroots group in terms of developing those things that are on the survey, and that would have been produced by as many people who wanted to participate, which is exactly what we're getting here. I would like my commission to consider the volume of responses and put some value judgment on that. If 50 people, I mean, we had 12 people participating online here tonight. We have another 10 or so participating. Great, but I mean, I don't think that's necessarily representative of the community. It might get us somewhere. It's going to get us some goals and so forth. I had a problem answering a lot of these questions, you know, because virtually all of them are open for interpretation, and they can serve divergent goals. you know, if you put a high value on pedestrian safety, who can argue with that? Chicken in every pot. You then have to put a cost to whatever action you're going to take in producing the safest community for pedestrians. How much green space you're going to take up, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of, you know, things here, and this shouldn't drive absolutely our forward movement without measured discussion and your thoughts on these processes. As not just taking the number one ranking and going after that goal with nothing else in mind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
We haven't been announcing ourselves. Chuck Ross, 1166 Griffin Boulevard. I think the main point in which Dan and Janie and Mac made, and the problem is that we don't know who put the questions together because it was not done transparently. I think that's the main thing that most people are getting at. And the concern is, and for me, I found that the questions in the survey were very confining and not open-ended. And I think what Mac was getting at was that the idea was you start with a blank slate, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mac, and we construct something as a group. And instead we had kind of were given a slate, and it just felt like we were being directed in a certain direction in my mind. I couldn't fill out the survey, frankly, but I think the main concern was who constructed the survey and to begin with. So, but going back to also what Max said, I think that the process, I think Betsy did an excellent job running the meeting. I thought there was the fact that, you know, the idea of doing all this is important, and maybe we ought to consider some of the transparency issues in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I can refer to public comments. Hearing that, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting or any final comments?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you all once again for coming. Appreciate it so much.